Thank you for joining us on This Week in Turkey. I am Murat Türsan. Tonight, opposition figurehead Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu resurrects Turkey's headscarf issue. President Erdogan sits down with heads of Azerbaijan and Armenia. There is an interesting ambassadorial appointment. There is a gruesome murder in the nation's capital. Iranian women won't back down, and will end on a thought by Medyascope's editor-in-chief. But our main story tonight, did the opposition's figurehead just hand Erdogan a win? Turkey is in a critical time in its history as the 2023 general elections are right around the corner, and this one may very well be Erdogan's last. Main opposition party CHP's chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu has been highly successful in soaking up the limelight in the past year, which has led many to assume that he is after that presidential nomination for the upcoming general election. Nothing is official thus far, but we can safely say that Kılıçdaroğlu definitely has presidential aspirations. However, there's a problem with that. Kılıçdaroğlu has some electability issues. Most poll aggregates indicate that Kılıçdaroğlu is the weakest potential candidate to run against Erdogan, but that doesn't mean he won't use his bully pulpit. Kılıçdaroğlu has had a few wins in the past, most notably and recently, he got the government to wipe out interest payments on student debt. But he doesn't always necessarily score points. Since last year, Kılıçdaroğlu has been on a tour of reconciliation with the country's past and its marginalized minority groups. He appears determined to bury the hatchet with a lot of people, from the country's ethnic and religious minorities to its religious majority that had been under the thumb of past secularist administrations for the better part of this nation's history. And to that end, Kılıçdaroğlu released yet another one of his videos, this time vowing to secure women's religious rights to wear a headscarf. However, women have had this right practically since 2013, and this was considered a de facto closed matter. Kılıçdaroğlu said that his party would submit a bill to secure these rights the following day. But then President Erdogan struck back and one-upped him, saying that that would not be enough. As a matter of fact, Kılıçdaroğlu's bill was nothing more than a backdoor way of banning headscarves again, and that these rights would have to be enshrined in the Constitution. So, did Kılıçdaroğlu just play into Erdogan's hand and give him the last word? Ankara Institute Research Director Osman Sert will be with us in just a little bit, and we'll ask him exactly that. But here are a few details first.
Sevgili halkım, iyi akşamlar.
Main opposition party CHP's chair Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu released yet another one of his famed videos on Twitter this Monday. As a part of Kılıçdaroğlu's continued campaign of reconciliation with the nation's past and marginalized groups, Kılıçdaroğlu made an overture to the conservative voter bloc. Kılıçdaroğlu this time proposed a law that guaranteed women's rights to wear headscarves and announced that his party would submit the bill to the parliament the following day. The three-article proposal states that women working in public institutions would be free to wear any head covering so long as it is in line with any uniform requirements. President Erdogan struck back at his party's group meeting saying, he says, let's introduce a bill. The bill he intends to introduce is both insufficient to grasp the entirety of the matter or to resolve it. As a matter of fact, it could even serve as a basis to introduce new bans. Since he brought this matter up, let us then respond with an even stronger offer and propose that the right to wear headscarves should be enshrined in the Constitution. Head coverings have a long and controversial past in Turkey, and for the longest time were banned in any public institution. It first became an issue in the 1960s when women were first allowed to attend Imam Hatip vocational schools that trained Turkey's imams. Female students wearing headscarves demanded admittance to the universities, but were denied. The first bill banning headscarves came after Turkey's 1980 military coup. In 1984, the Higher Education Council passed an amendment formally banning headscarves. In the 1990s, the ban was relaxed, but was later tightened even more after Turkey's 1997 military memorandum that overthrew the government. AKP came to power in 2001 but didn't lift the headscarf ban right away, but made an attempt in 2008, which was struck down by the Supreme Court. In 1999, then newly elected MP Merve Kavakçı appeared in Parliament for her swearing-in, wearing a headscarf, and was blocked by the members of Parliament. She was later discovered to hold U.S. citizenship, which she failed to disclose, and was then stripped of her Turkish citizenship. 14 years later, during AKP's tenure, however, 4 MPs wearing headscarves joined the parliament with no opposition. In 2013, headscarf bans in public institutions were lifted, and the matter has been considered closed ever since.
Joining me now, Ankara Institute Research Director Osman Sert. Mr. Sert, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, sir, I'd like to start off with this. The headscarf issue in Turkey hasn't really come up in like a really, really long time. Public officials and students have been able to wear any manner of head coverings in public institutions for some time. Sure, headscarves are once again in the public sphere due to the protests in Iran, but in Turkey, this was basically considered a closed matter. Now, why do you think Kılıçdaroğlu would bring this up? Do you expect this to bring in any votes for the opposition, or did he just end up playing into Erdogan's hand? Your thoughts?
First of all, we cannot just mess Turkey and Iran up. They're totally different stories. Regarding the headscarf, I know that there are so many discussions, conversations regarding whether it's already done and there's no problem in practice, and then why Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu bringing this issue to the table. It's a legitimate question, but there are some missing points. First of all, the headscarf issue is done in practice, but in memory, it is not done. Still, the memories of the concerns about headscarf and what is experienced during, just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we were seeing such kind of things. And that's why in practice, yes, but still it is valid for the memories of especially the conservative voters in Turkey. The second one, this headscarf issue was resolved at the public sphere, but especially on official matter. Regarding the big companies of Turkey, there are still not declared headscarf issues still. If you look at the big companies in Turkey, you cannot still see headscarf high level. Always we are just discussing about the gender equality, the glass ceiling, which is preventing the women to go up. But if these women are headscarf, the problem is still staying over there in the media, in the big companies, in financial institutions. That's why this problem is still not resolved fully. Another thing, I think Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is right to think that Mr. Erdogan is always trying to push the opposition to the corner, as if whenever they are taking power and they're just winning the election, then another risk, another threat will come to the people, the conservative people, and they will undo everything that the AK Party did regarding the civil liberties, especially for the religious people. Even if Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is just following a path which is helalleşme, making peace with everybody, and then it's very, I think a very good designed thing. But in spite of this, Mr. Erdogan is trying to push Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu to the corner regarding issue. And Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is not playing in the hands of President Erdogan, but taking his cause from his hands. Then suppose that the rerun of Istanbul elections, Mr. Ekrem İmamoğlu just won the election, but how? Of course, there was frustration regarding the Istanbul municipality, which was run by AK Party during the last more than 20 years, 30 years by Mr. Erdogan. But he went to Eyüp Sultan Mosque and read Quran. It is very exceptional thing. Even the conservative politicians were not going to the mosque and reading Quran because they have known that they were not in a need to prove they are religious. But Mr. Ekrem İmamoğlu was in such a need, and he made it, and it pays at the back. Okay, he won the election, and that's why this is still matters. It doesn't mean that there are some bans on headscarf at the universities or the public spheres. It is not, but it still matters, and that's why I see Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu's step a good start if they can bring the end.
I see. And sir, let's talk a little bit about the internal politics of the matter concerning the coalition. Now, I think at this point we can safely say that Kılıçdaroğlu has presidential aspirations. He does intend to run in 2023 if he can secure that presidential nomination from the opposition coalition. But there have been a few rifts in the opposition coalition as of late. The coalition does not seem to agree that Kılıçdaroğlu is the best candidate. What does this move actually mean for the coalition?
It is a bit, confused. It is including some confused messages for the coalition. First of all, such kind of a move, just bringing a legal protection for headscarf by CHP's proposal, won't be bringing any new votes for CHP. Because the people who suffered from this headscarf issue, they have already, some identical thing or some prejudgments, whatever you call it, or their real experiences. They will not go and vote for CHP. It's a fact. But it will make just transition between the opposition and government bloc much more easier for the others. Maybe they will be going and voting for Gelecek Party, Future Party, or Deva Partisi, or İYİ Party, if not CHP. And what is important, what we are talking about is always the second round of presidential elections. What does it mean? As far as we see, Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is pushing his candidacy, even sometimes dictating his candidacy. And if he is a candidate, probably neither Mr. Erdogan nor Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu will receive sufficient vote to win the election. And it will go to a second round. This move means at the second round, the people who want to vote for the other candidate, not Erdogan, but the other one, which is probably will be Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, when they are voting for Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, they shouldn't hesitate. They shouldn't have some concerns or, frustration regarding headscarf or conservative values. This is the main aim of this move of Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu. Nothing more than that or nothing less than that. Regarding the coalition, it is a bit confused, as I have said. It will be making the life for Deva Partisi and Future Party, Gelecek Party, easier. Why? Because whenever they're just making rallies and just turning around, just going around the country, the people who already voted for Mr. Davutoğlu or Mr. Babacan before, they are asking that how come you can go and make a cooperation with CHP, which was against headscarf and conservative values. This will make life for these political actors. And they will say that, look, what do you want more? Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu himself is bringing a new proposal to bring a legal protection for headscarf and all of your conservative values. Even Mr. Erdogan didn't do such a thing. And it will be make life for these parties much more easier for side parties as well. For İYİ Party, it is a bit different indeed, because as far as I have followed Ms. Akşener's statements, the main problem of İYİ Party is not with a proposal which will be bringing a legal protection for headscarf. But the main problem of İYİ Party, as far as I understand, is with the candidacy of Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu. If Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu was not pushing for his own candidacy, probably İYİ Party would have looking at the issue much more positively. Since İYİ Party and Meral Akşener has bigger question marks regarding Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu's candidacy, they have just expressing some question marks about this proposal as well. And I do not know how it will go. And the final thing is CHP itself, because we have seen too many critics coming from CHP electorate, CHP political elites, entourage, whatever you call it. And if Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu cannot step forward strongly on his own proposal, it may create a problem. But if he follows his own line strongly, then the critics coming from CHP can just fade away, because they are just trying to show Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu as the candidate. But if Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu hesitates about his own proposal, just because Mr. Erdogan is bringing some new things, and then maybe Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu will be hesitating about following his line, then it may create a problem for CHP, and he can mess it up.
I see. Final question, sir. I'd like to end on this. You have said that headscarf issue in Turkey is absolutely not a closed issue. So Kılıçdaroğlu has brought in a bill, and President Erdogan has rebuked his bill and said that this needs to be enshrined in the Constitution. What does the ideal solution look like to you?
Ideal solution is, it's a $1 million question and it's very difficult. First of all, headscarf issue was a problem in Turkey. To an extent, it was resolved. It's true in practice, but still there are something to be resolved regarding this issue. But headscarf issue shouldn't be isolated from other, the broader civil liberties about the role of dictating states' own ideology to the public. It may be, conservatism. It may be, hardline secularism or whatever you call it. And that's why the state should withdraw itself from civil liberties. And it should be, a broader, maybe constitutional amendments, bringing much greater area of liberties. Even if, suppose that today the problem regarding headscarf issue was resolved through a constitutional amendment or legal bid, whatever it is, but still there's a problem on the pressure on press, for instance. It won't be solving the issues if CHP has the courage, especially the leader of it, Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu, has the courage to face up with this problem, which was created by the first years of the Republican period. Then everybody should be courageous enough to face up with all the problems. And the headscarf issue shouldn't be isolated from the overall, state-centric domination of the civil life in Turkey. And this is the ideal one, but it cannot be done by only a constitutional amendment. Turkey needs a new constitution for it, which was written from the very beginning till the end, just taking the civil liberties and the the freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression all together, and then we can reach at a much more ideal balance. Otherwise, we will be always, it will be like a catch-up. Okay, you are just solving a problem, but the other problem is staying over there. And that's why it will be, again, on the one hand side, something good. Mr. Kılıçdaroğlu is bringing a very radical solution, but at the end of the day, it is not because of a comprehensive, non-governmental organizations, intellectuals, journalists are coming together and bringing such kind of a thing. Even CHP itself didn't discuss on it. That's why this is the main problem. Even if a freedom is coming, it is coming from top to down. Even if, a pressure is coming, it is coming from top to down. We need a down to top common understanding for, freedom of all these, civil areas. I think this is the ideal one, but it is a bit far away till the elections at least. After that, still Turkey will be in need of so on. I don't want to make it long, but regarding the Kurdish issue, for instance, it is not an issue just to go and visit Roboski, for instance. First of all, you need to have a general understanding to solve the Kurdish issue, and then within it, Roboski means something. Regarding liberties, regarding freedom of religion, regarding freedom of expression, first you need to have such a great vision, and then within it, solving the headscarf issue will mean something. And that's why we need much broader and comprehensive approach to the Liberties Act.
I see, sir. Well said. Osman Sert, thank you for breaking that down for us, and thank you for being able to join us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
On to Turkey on the international stage. President Erdogan met with Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Azerbaijani President Aliyev yesterday in the first European Political Community Summit in Prague. The meeting is rather historic in a sense, as Turkey and Armenia's relations have been historically downright hostile. Turkey backed Azerbaijan in the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War of 2020, famously providing Bayraktar attack drones, and many say that they were decisive in Azerbaijan's victory over Armenia. In 2021, however, a complete 180. Turkey and Armenia appointed special envoys, and Armenia lifted its embargo on Turkey. Now it appears that President Erdogan is embracing his newfound role as a peacemaker, as he has brought Prime Minister Pashinyan and President Aliyev to the table in Prague. Here are the details.
The European political community had its first summit in Prague this week. The summit includes 44 nations, 27 EU nations, along with European and Europe-adjacent states, designed to facilitate strategic discussions about the future of Europe. The summit is designed to coordinate policy not only among the EU member states, but non-member states in the area of economy, defense, stability, but with a particular focus on the recent European energy crisis in light of Russia's invasion of Ukraine and subsequent Russian energy sanctions. The summit itself wasn't the only first, however. President Erdogan sat down with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan in what seemed like a cordial meeting among the three. Armenia and Azerbaijan have exchanged fire along their borders as late as September 29th, mere days ago, threatening yet another all-out war between the two countries. And it appears that President Erdogan is making yet another attempt to play intermediary between the two Caucasian states. Armenia and Azerbaijan clashed in the Second Nagorno-Karabakh War in 2020 that ended in a decisive victory in favor of Azerbaijan. Backed by Turkey, the Nagorno-Karabakh War brought international attention to Turkey's infamous TB2 drones, used to good effect by Azerbaijan during the conflict. The conflict came to a halt on November 9, 2022, when both sides signed a ceasefire brokered by Russia. But with Russia currently engaged in Ukraine, the peace has been fragile to say the least.
And continuing with international news, Turkey has appointed 41 representatives and ambassadors to nations all around the world. This would usually be routine, but there is one name in there that has raised a few eyebrows. Metin Feyzioğlu is now the ambassador to the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus. But he was once a vocal critic of President Erdogan. Feyzioğlu got into a verbal altercation with Erdogan in 2014, making Erdogan walk out of a speech he was about to give. Later, he made a bid for the leadership of the main opposition party, CHP, but was unsuccessful in dethroning Kılıçdaroğlu. After his failed bid, he began to change his tune. Last year, the government made an attempt at merging all bar associations in Turkey into one central body, thus concentrating its power. Feyzioğlu at the time was the head of the Istanbul Bar Association and was a vocal supporter of this plan. Thus, it appears while dissent has its consequences, so does loyalty. And President Erdogan doesn't appear to hold grudges for that long either. Medyascope's editor-in-chief, Ruşen Çakır, had a few things to say about Feyzioğlu's change of heart. Here's that story.
Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu has announced new ambassadorial appointees. Çakır Özkan Turunlar, who served as Consul General to Jerusalem between 2010 and 2014, has been nominated as Turkey's ambassador to Israel. The two nations agreed to restore their damaged diplomatic ties earlier this year after a 4-year disagreement. Çavuşoğlu also named Metin Feyzioğlu as Turkey's new ambassador to the Republic of Northern Cyprus, the unrecognized de facto state. Feyzioğlu's appointment raised eyebrows as he formerly served as the head of the Union of Turkish Bar Associations from 2013 until he lost to Eren Sakan in last year's elections. Feyzioğlu drew fire from then Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan in 2014 during a speech he made at the State Council's 146th anniversary meeting. Cameras were rolling as Erdogan stood up during Feyzioğlu's speech. Before leaving the hall in protest, Erdogan confronted Feyzioğlu and accused him of being disrespectful. Feyzioğlu was historically a vocal critic of Erdogan and AKP, accusing the statesman of eroding the law and the independent judiciary in Turkey. However, after his failed bid to lead the main opposition party, CHP, Feyzioğlu became a supporter of Erdogan's policies in restructuring the judiciary and the Bar Association, backing a failed plan to centralize the bar associations in Turkey. Medyascope's editor-in-chief, Ruşen Çakır, commented that Erdogan had a way of converting his rivals, comparing it to the Ottoman devşirme system, a medieval practice in the Ottoman Empire where Christian boys would be taken by the Ottomans, converted to Islam, and would serve as soldiers in the Janissary Corps. Feyzioğlu is the latest addition to a long list of opponents converted by Erdogan.
And in domestic news, there was a gruesome murder in the nation's capital, Ankara, this week. Musician Onur Şener was killed after a verbal altercation with 3 men in a bar where he was performing. And he was really murdered over nothing. Evidently, the men requested a song which he did not know, which led to a fight that was broken up by the staff at the bar. But they cornered him outside later and stabbed him multiple times with broken bottles. The suspects are under arrest and they are waiting trial. But the identities of the suspects were leaked to the media shortly thereafter, which ushered in a mystery. All these men have prior criminal records, and they all work for the government, which in theory should not be possible. You can't work in the public sector if you have a record, in theory. That would depend on the severity of the crime that you've committed and the time elapsed, but still, this alone is suspicious enough. Now, the artists around the country condemned the murder and showered the family of Şener with their condolences. Famous singer Melek Mosso also blamed the culture in Turkey that progressively suppresses and diminishes art and artists, saying that they're just as much to blame as the suspects. Here's that story.
The Turkish capital was home to a gruesome murder this week when 3 men murdered a rock musician. A trio of men in a social club made a request from the musician Onur Şener. When Şener said that he didn't know that song, the men first had a verbal altercation, which then turned physical. The fight was averted when the club staff intervened. The men later cornered Şener outside on his way home and stabbed him using broken bottles. The police were called to the scene and the assailants were arrested, but Şener later died at the hospital. The men involved were quick to point fingers at each other. The suspects were identified as Ali Gündüz and Semih Soyalp, who claimed they were trying to break up the fight, while İlker Karakaş committed the act. İlker Karakaş denied the allegations and claimed he did not know who committed the murder. Later, the suspects were revealed to be government employees working in the Ministry of Labor and the highly classified Turkish aerospace industry. Suspects Ali Gündüz and İlker Karakaş worked as engineers in the state-owned Turkish Aerospace Industry Corporation. Gündüz is also reportedly an inspector in the Ministry of Labor. It was later reported that the men had prior criminal records, which in theory should have precluded them from working in the public sector altogether. Şener first came to fame on a television program performing Show Must Go On by Queen 9 years ago. Şener is survived by his wife and young daughter.
Continuing on with domestic news, Iranians are not backing down from this fight. Last Sunday, thousands of Iranians gathered in Istanbul's Kadıköy district to mourn Mahsa Amini once again. Amini, of course, was the 22-year-old Iranian woman who died in Iranian morality police custody on September 16th. Amini was placed under arrest for improperly wearing her hijab and was later pronounced dead, having suffered cranial injuries and a consequent stroke. Amini's death sparked protests not just in Iran, but all across the globe. Istanbul, a city with a remarkable number of Iranian citizens, also has been seeing its fair share of protests. Medyascope's Keathleen, Phelps, and Mehmet Tanverdi were on the scene.
It has been 15 days since the start of the protests in Iran, sparked by the death of Mahsa Amini. Today, we are in the Kadıköy district of Istanbul, witnessing yet another protest in support of the anti-government movement that is happening currently in Iran. So, can you tell us why you're here today?
As you can see, we are here to protest against the dictatorship, against everything that has been happening to us for 45 years. I'm here as a young adult who cannot enter her country because she is literally limited to do anything she wants. We don't have freedom of anything. As a woman, as a human, I am here to protest against that regime, against dictatorship. That's why I'm here.
What have you seen has changed since the protests have started? Have you seen any change?
Well, I'm going to say something. We had a lot of protests in Iran against this dictatorship, against this regime. And this time, I feel there are a lot of things happening. People are not standing down. They're not going to stop because there are a lot of blood that has been spilled against humanity, against themselves.
How does it feel that people outside of Iran are protesting with you?
It feels amazing. It feels that I'm united with my own country. Look, for God's sake, these are people, the adults that couldn't talk in their own country. I feel I am in my country for a moment, for a second, and I have freedom to speak about it.
And folks, the full-length version of that video is available on the channel right now. Go ahead and give it a look. And with that, that's it for us on This Week in Turkey. I have Murat Türsan. A special thanks to Keathleen Phelps and Mehmet Tanverdi, as always. And please don't forget to subscribe. Give us a little like if you feel generous. And we'll leave you with a clip from Medyascope's editor-in-chief, Ruşen Çakır's thoughts on the rift in the opposition and their inability to simply get along.
They have to accept this fact. They all need each other. Whoever leaves the table first will lose. I also affirm this with confidence. If a party leaves the coalition, you know they are constantly taking polls. The table of 6 won't lose votes, but will gain more. If any party leaves the table, and I mean any party, maybe with the exception of CHP, the coalition won't lose votes. They all need each other. Even in this situation, excuse my language, but what is all this blustering about? They are all doing this. CHP to other parties, E-Party to other people. They are creating crises out of the smallest things.